Have you ever tried to make a dog coat for a puppy and found that it literally was too small for the dog before you even put it on the dog? Or perhaps you've never even made a dog coat before because you were afraid that by the time you put all that energy into it and you put the fabric into it and you made the coat, it just simply wasn't going to work anymore. This is a question that I've had recently, and it was also a problem that I ran into when I made my first dog coat for Scout. Literally, by the time I finished it and put it onto her, it was already too small. It didn't reach down the back of her length, the length of her back, and so she didn't really have good coverage with it. And it was also an area that, or a question and a request that I had from a lot of the customers when I was making custom made dog coats for retail. And so I came up with some different ideas on how to address this to create what I call, or what you've probably heard before, a grow with me type of coat. So some of my ideas were good and some of them not so good, but ultimately I came up with some really great ideas that I want to share with you today. So a couple of things that I want you to think about that are challenges are puppies grow in all different areas. Their neck circumference grows, their chest circumference grows, their back length grows, and also the girth on the dog, the waist, and just the general circumference of the rest of the body really grows as well. So those are 4 areas that you need to be able to adapt and modify so that it changes as the dog grows. So the circumference is typically something that's not so hard to deal with. That would be the circumference of the neck and the circumference of the belly, the chest area. Those are fairly easy to deal with. But when you're looking at the coat length, the part that runs from the collar on the dog down to its tail, that is a little bit more of a challenge when it comes to modifications. And also the coat length, how it drapes over the side of the dog, how much that needs to grow is also an area that you need to consider and is a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to show you some ideas when I go to my overhead camera on how you can adapt these, a pattern to work for those areas. One of the things that I do suggest is that you plan ahead. Google the type of dog that you have, the breed of dog you have. If you don't have a regular breed, find a breed that you think is closest to the dog that you have. Or if you have no idea, just generally guess as to how large you think that dog would grow. But what I would do is Google the dog and find out how big that dog is going to be when it becomes full size. Now, I also have a dog size chart on my website, which I'll give a link to down in the description below. And you can check this out. And what it's got on it is the different breeds that it fits. So if you can find a breed in that area that you think is going to be close to what your dog is, then that is my recommendation, is that you take a dog size, or a pattern size, that is going to be close to what your dog's going to end up being. Now, this a caveat here is that you really do want to consider what kind of dog you have. A dog that is a smaller breed dog, like a terrier or a French bulldog, let's say, even a smaller to medium-sized poodle, you can usually adapt coats that will grow with them. But if you're talking about something like a Great Dane, the amount of growth for that dog is pretty intense. Like, it grows really big from that small little dog to a big dog. So it's not realistic to expect that you could make one coat that's going to grow with its full growth stage. However, you can at least make a dog coat that will last a little longer, and that is really great for sustainability. I mean, sustainability is one of my strongest pillars, philosophies. I think trying to make dog coats that are sustainable and are going to last, you're using really good quality fabrics and hardware and materials, that is going to make a coat that lasts longer. But if you can't, if your dog actually grows out of the dog coat, just regift it to someone else that has a dog that it would fit, or give it to your local shelter, because they're always looking for coats. So there's always ways of making sure that that you can extend the life of that dog coat. Just looking at my notes here. The other thing that I want to mention is that it's really important to work with a simple pattern. Now, I have a cozy coat pattern that I will link down below too. This is a free pattern you can download, and it's a great pattern to work with when you are making one of these dog coats, these Grow With Me dog coats, because it is such a lovely, simple pattern, and it really does give you a lot of options for how you can modify it so that it grows with your dog coat. So I'm going to flip to the overhead camera here, and I will show you my cozy coat. And I'm just going to go through some examples on how you can modify this coat so that it will grow with your dog. So my cozy coat is a really great pattern, as I mentioned, because it's a simple dog coat. It is really only one piece that you work with. There is a second piece that goes on the collar, but that really, the body of the coat is just one piece. And it also has cut lines that allow you to modify the coat in many different places. It's got a cut line for the hem to allow you to extend the length of the coat. It has cut lines at the neck and also at the chest circumference area. And it also has a cut line to allow you to move where the belly band sits on the dog coat. So there's a lot of great ways that you can modify this pattern to make a Grow With Me kind of coat. So let's talk about the neck and the chest circumference. Circumference is one of the easiest areas that you can adapt, and that is because you can add Velcro. You could add extra Velcro that would allow you to expand and contract that dog coat. I'm sorry. Just got to clear my throat there. So Velcro, let me just show you on the actual finished coat here. We've got Velcro that goes around the chest area and Velcro that goes around the neck. So if you added extra Velcro into here, that would allow you to really cinch the coat up quite tight when the dog is smaller, and then open it up further so that when your dog is wider around the chest or the neck, that you can expand that coat. So the Velcro is a really simple solution. Now, one of the things that I just want to mention there, if you are doing Velcro that's expandable, you do want to make sure that you've got about 2 inches that is where the Velcro is overlapping at its when it is the most expanded, because that'll give you a really good strong hold. Anything less than 2 inches, you start to kind of lose that hold. The other thing I want to mention is when you're setting this up and you want to make it so it fits a really small dog, you want to actually add a few extra strips to the outside of the coat so that this can attach to that, so that you don't have a little flap that's flapping around where that extra bit of overlap is. So again, the neck and the chest are pretty simple. Another couple of ideas that you could do here is you can add elastic casing. So you put a little casing in there, put some elastic in there, and that would cinch the coat up when the dog was small, and then expand as the dog grows. Same thing for the neck. And last idea that you could do here is add some drawstrings. So again, you could put some casings in there, put a drawstring in with a toggle, and as the dog coat's pretty small and you've got a small puppy, you can just cinch that drawstring out in and then expand it out as the dog grows. One of the thoughts that I just want to make sure that I pass along here is you don't want to have toggles that are like where you're drawing in that and the toggle for that drawstring. Don't put it around where the arms are on the dog, down below in the belly underneath the armpits, because that makes for a very uncomfortable area for the dog. But if you put it anywhere else on the dog coat, it should be just fine. Now, when we come to extending the length of the dog coat, that starts to become a little bit more challenging. And so when I'm talking about extending the length, I'm talking about extending the length from the neck area down to the tail. And again, this is an area that a lot of dogs will grow quite a bit in. It does depend on the breed, but it is something that you want to consider. So my cozy coat has a cut line on it that's near the end, and literally anything, any pattern that you're working for, you can add your own cut lines if it doesn't come with a cut line. But what you're looking for is a flat section on the pattern where you've got a straight line. That way you can cut that pattern and move it so that you're adding an extension to it, or shortening it up, and you're not dealing with a curve. Once you start cutting into the curve line, then you've got to redraw the curves, and it just makes it more complicated. So I like to try to find an area on the pattern that is flat, that allows me to cut. So let's say we're working on this coat here, and we want to extend it so that it's going to grow to a medium-sized dog, but we're working, our puppy is at the moment just a small-sized dog. So let me show you on one of the coats that I made for Scout. Now, this was one of the first coats that I made, and it was too short for her, almost literally as soon as I made the coat. So as you can see, this here, if you're on just listening to this on audio, I'm just showing the back end of the coat. The hemline ended up being too short for her, and her back was exposed. So what I did was I opened up that hem and I added a little skirt onto the end. I just took some fabric, pleated it up, and then sewed it into the dog coat, and that extended the dog coat. So that's one idea, is that you can add an extension after the dog grows out of the coat, or you can add that extension even before the dog coat is put on your dog, as it's still a puppy. And what you can do is you can fold under that extension, or fold it over, depending on how you want to style your coat, but you can fold it under or over, and then just attach it by snaps or buttons, something that'll hold it in place. And then you have a nice short coat, as it's a small dog, and something that you can open up and extend later on as the dog grows. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about here is the length of the coat on the side, and that is how long does the coat drape over the side. So one of the things this is one of the more challenging areas, as you can imagine, because as the dog's general girth changes, as their waist gets bigger and their haunches and everything gets bigger, the way that the coat drapes over the side becomes too short if you're going with a small puppy size. So some things that you can do to extend the length of this, as it's to shorten the length and then pull it out to extend it later on. Some of the things you can do is, again, we can work with drawstrings. So you could add a drawstring into the whole center area, as we talked before, and that would cinch up the coat so that it was shorter on the side of the dog. And you could also add a drawstring near the back of the coat, along the hemline even, and draw that up as the dog is smaller, so that the coat hangs shorter on the dog, and then as it grows you can just let it out a little bit at a time. The same thing you can do with drawstrings along the back of the coat. So if you imagine the coat from the neck all the way to the tail, you could add a drawstring that runs fully along that whole length and cinch that drawstring up when the dog is short, or it has a very short back length, and then extend that out as the dog grows bigger and bigger. So those are some ideas that you can do to extend the life of your coat. And really, this, again, as I said, this is really what we want to try to do, is we want to be able to reuse and continue to use the things that we make for our dogs so that they're sustainable. One last thing I want to just mention, I forgot to mention, again, on the sides of the dog coat, how far it drapes down on the side of the dog. One other thing you could do is add an extra large hem on that, and then just let that hem out as the dog grows. And you can do that on the back side as well, the back length as well. So you can always add an extra hem that you let out, or drawstrings, or elastics, or any combination of these things. But there really is a lot of ways that you can work with this dog coat to extend its life. And that is just like such a great thing as far as I'm concerned. Now, there are some things that I want to mention about just kind of realistic expectations of what you can expect with a dog coat. As I mentioned earlier, if you have a small dog and it's only going to grow to be sort of a medium-sized dog at its full height or its full size, then it makes it a little bit easier, because you don't have such a growth span. There's not such a great exaggeration in the way that it changes. But if you are working with, or if you're trying to make a dog coat for a puppy that is going to ultimately grow into a really big dog, then don't have this expectation that you're going to have a dog coat that's going to last its full growth period. But it may last it until it's halfway through its growth period, and then you've got a dog coat that you've been able to use for a long time, and you can always regift it. The other thing that that I just wanted to mention, I'm just looking again at my notes. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that this isn't a forever coat. Like, you don't want to think of it in the sense of, I'm making one coat and it's going to last the dog its whole life. It's not really realistic, but it is, again, we're just trying to extend the life of that coat and reuse it as much as possible. So if you work with really great fabrics and hardware, it's going to extend the life of that coat just because of the quality. And if you give it some expansion in some areas where you can have the coat grow with the dog, that also extends its life. Just checking my notes to make sure I've got everything here. And the last thing I just wanted to mention is that if you have any questions, I'd love to hear questions from you. I would love to hear if you've ever made a dog coat that you've made that grew with the puppy that you had. I'd love to hear your ideas, what you did, what you found worked, what didn't work. And if you have any questions about this, feel free to put them in the comments down below or email me, and I'll put my email address down in the description below. But I would love to hear from you. So anytime you have any questions on this topic or any other topic that you'd like me to cover, I would be more than happy to cover that for you. I like to take questions at the end, and so I will typically check in after I've finished my presentation, and I do go live every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I live in Vancouver, Canada, so I do go live on Pacific time, 11 a.m. every Thursday. So feel free to send off those questions and comment on this video, and I would be more than happy to answer them for you. So let me just check to see if there are any questions from anyone, and it doesn't look like there are any questions. So I think that's it for now. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions you do have, so feel free to fire them off to me. And until next week, I hope this gives you some ideas of something to work with this week if you've got a puppy and you're trying to make a grow with me coat to go along with it. Have fun sewing. Bye.